Aquarium heaters are one of those things that actually kills a lot of shrimp in this hobby. And today I'm gonna dive into all the reasons why you shouldn't use an aquarium heater. And I'm even going to introduce a little bit of, hey, you might need a heater if you have this very rare situation. And I'm gonna show you how to use a heater successfully. So that is what we are talking about today. So let's jump right into today's video. What is going on, shrimp keepers? This is Rob with flipaquatics.com, and today we're talking all things aquarium heaters and how they relate to the shrimp keeping community. Now, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of information out there. And so today, I want to speak to you from my decade of experience in the aquarium hobby and what I've learned, the mistakes that I've made, and really give you my firsthand experience with using aquarium heaters, the situations that you might need them, why you shouldn't use them most of the time. And just to give you an idea, like, we keep tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of shrimp. And so when I'm making these claims and I'm telling you guys stuff, I promise you I am coming from a place of, I've been there, I've done it. This is what we do on a large scale. And hopefully some of you find this useful, and hopefully it saves shrimp from death. And so today, that is what we're talking about, so let's get right into it. The first thing to talk about is we have to talk about what temperature is good for shrimp. So I'm mostly referring to freshwater shrimp, specifically Caridina and Neocaridina, because that's the type that I'm most familiar with. What temperature is best for them? 68 degrees to 72 degrees is by far the best. Now that's Fahrenheit, obviously not Celsius. That is what we aim for. Now we are in the basement. We keep all of our shrimp in the basement. So our natural temperature in the basement is about 50 to 70 degrees, depending on what time of the year it is. And that works out perfect for our shrimp. So 68 to 72 degrees is what we established as the norm. So let's say if we're keeping shrimp at 72 degrees or less, the cooler the water gets, they go into a hibernation state, which means that they consume less food, they breed less frequently, they just kind of slow down. And what I've seen is they actually live a lot longer. So a lot of people online, like if you Googled right now, I'm sure you'd see shrimp live 2 to 3 years. In cooler water, so 72 degrees or less, we've actually seen that they can live up to 5 or 6 years. So they live a lot longer life, which I equate to living a healthier life. It's better for them to be in that cooler water. Now the reverse side of that, 72 and above, the higher you go, the more dangerous it gets. Now, if they are consuming less food, breeding less, living longer in cooler water, what do you assume is happening in hotter water? They're gonna breed more, they're going to eat a lot more food, but they're gonna burn out a lot quicker, so they're gonna live shorter lives. And that's where you get a lot of people saying 2 to 3 years. Now, which one is better? I always stay on the side of caution and healthier and let them live longer. And so that's why I always recommend 72 or less. Now, when you get above 72, that's the danger zone. The higher you get, a lot of people will push the temperature to encourage breeding, but in those higher temperatures, it gets really risky. Things can go wrong quickly. And we actually have a whole section just on having a high temperature and what that could do to your shrimp. So let's actually get into the reasons why I say don't use a heater in your shrimp tank. And then at the end of the video, we'll talk about how you can use one successfully if you find yourself in a situation where you have to. Reason number one not to use a heater is due to fluctuations in temperature. And so the first thing is shrimp molt. Shrimp shed their exoskeleton every 30 days. It's just a part of their normal process. But they also will molt early when they're stressed out or when there's fluctuations in the water. So a normal heater, what it does is I call it the roller coaster effect. So a normal heater will be in your tank when let's say it's set to 72 degrees, because that's what I say is ideal, or even 68, we'll use 68. It's set to 68. The heater, most heaters will not kick on until the temperature hits 66 degrees. So temperature gets to 66 in the tank, heater realizes that it needs to kick on, it heats it up. By the time the heater turns off, it might creep up to 70 degrees. Now, 70 degrees is slowly gonna fall, boom, hits 66 degrees, shoots it back up to 70, and the average is 68 degrees, but you have these peaks and these valleys. those peaks and valleys causes stress on the shrimp, which causes molting issues, which then causes a bunch of issues. And so that is number one reason that I don't use heaters, is because I started seeing like, oh, like my shrimp are failing to mold. I don't know what's going on. And it has to do with these fluctuations. Now, a lot of people that are watching right now might argue, well, hey, you get a high quality heater, it's not gonna happen. There's always the risk of this happening. And again, at the end of the video, I will show you how you can do this successfully. But for most people that are just like jumping on Amazon, buying a $15 heater, a $20 heater, you're gonna see these fluctuations, these peaks, these valleys, and that is gonna cause you a lot of molting issues, which is gonna cause you to have dead shrimp, which is gonna cause you to wanna quit as a shrimp keeper, which I wanna prevent you from doing. So I just wanna know, before we really get into reason 2 and reason 3, why you shouldn't use a heater, how many of you at home actually use a heater for your shrimp? I'm curious. If it's all of you, I'd be shocked. If it's none of you, if there's 0 comments down below, then I'll be like, boom, did Lord's work today. We saved shrimp lives. And so, so let me know down below whether you use a heater, whether you don't. For shrimp specifically, I know if you're keeping fish, you're probably using a heater because you got to keep it up 80 degrees, 82 degrees. You got discus, 90-degree water. I don't know. But yeah, let me know down below, and let's get right into reason 2. So if you look at this heater, you start seeing like, you know, there might be a little nick here. You know, some heaters like to be fully submerged in water. Other heaters could be like this. Other ones are built in to where if the water level drops, it turns itself off. This one says minimum water level. That doesn't necessarily mean it could be fully submerged. So anyway, there's just a lot of things that go into heaters. All of them are different. None of them are created equal. Just a lot of things that could go wrong. And so faulty heaters is reason number 2 why I don't use heaters. Now, the reason I say faulty heaters is, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but it has definitely happened to me at least once with shrimp and multiple times with fish, is you come over to a tank, you're looking at it, and you feel the warmth coming off of it. Heaters have a mechanism inside that gauges the temperature, which turns them on or off. And sometimes, like any switch, it can go bad. And it can either stay off or it can stay on. And that's where you actually cook your shrimp. And it is, I'm telling you, it is one of the worst feelings to walk up to a tank and see a bunch of dead stuff, touch the water, and it be like 95 degrees. And it's just horrible. And so like faulty heaters also happen in a number of other situations. If they're above the water line, they can burn out quicker. If they're below the water line, there can be a crack in them, which then water gets inside, which then leaches iron or copper into your tank. And so faulty heaters is a huge part of why I say, hey, it's just not worth the risk. It really isn't, especially when you know this shrimp can tolerate 50 degrees. Why risk it over a couple degrees or to increase their breeding productivity? Just better to let the shrimp do their thing, go into their hibernation state, and everything is just fine. Just be patient. It's all gonna work out. Reason number 3 is a good one. Now, a shrimp setup, we just did a video on this, doing a Neocaridina setup for under $100, which was really, really hard. So this hobby isn't the cheapest hobby in the world, but we have our system set up to where they're as basic as possible. So we have the good water, we have a couple alder cones, we have a sponge filter, and that's it. That's our setup. So in an already expensive hobby, reason number 3 is these suckers are expensive. So if you have all these reasons why heaters don't work, they don't work effectively, what you're gonna say is, oh, if I do need a heater, I'm gonna buy the nicest heater out there, which this is an Eheim heater, in my opinion, one of the best heaters. They're not cheap and they're made of glass, they're easy to break. So in a hobby where equipment is already expensive, you already spend a lot of money on the shrimp, you're spending a lot of money on the filters, you're spending a lot of money on the aquarium setup, you know, spending money on this doesn't make a ton of sense. And on top of that, it drains electricity. Like if you've ever had a house and you had it not on a furnace, but you had baseboard heating, you would know your electric bill goes through the roof. This is a miniature baseboard heater. That's really what it is. And it just sucks up electricity. So from a cost perspective, if you know, your temperature doesn't drop below, you know, 55 degrees in your house or 50 degrees in your house, I'm telling you, your shrimp are gonna do just fine. Now, even if you have like a barn where you're keeping your shrimp, it's probably more cost effective for you to have a furnace that heats the room that they're in versus a heater in every single one of your tanks. And I'm telling you, it's definitely gonna be a lot less risky to do it with a furnace versus a heater in the tank. So reason number 3, this sucker is expensive. Now, let's talk about situations where it actually makes sense to use a heater and how you can do it effectively. If you actually find yourself in a situation when you need a heater, and in my opinion, the only reason that you would ever need a heater is if your tank literally would freeze, or if your ambient temperature in your room fluctuates so drastically and your tank is small enough that it actually feels those fluctuations, that is the only time that I would use a heater. And I would say 99.99% of you watching this video will not find yourself in this situation. But if you find yourself in this situation, or you're like, hey, I don't really care what you say, Rob, I just want to know how to use a heater because I want my shrimp to breed so much. Let me show you how you do that successfully. So the first part of that is, what heaters would I recommend? So these are 2 heaters, 2 brands that we actually use here at flipaquatics on a regular basis and can actually say, yes, these are good heaters. So first of which, Eheim, I love them. This is the exact brand that I would get. And the only thing is you have to kind of dial in the temperature gauge. So there's a red dial, there's a blue dial. You kind of have to make those 2 work for you. Now, I'm not here to train you on how to use an Eheim filter, but I could, if you guys reach out to us, I can explain it. Look up videos online. I'm sure there's tons of helpful information. The next one is, this is a Hygger heater. What I like about this heater is it can be fully submerged, and it actually has a gauge on it that says like, oh, I'm above water, turn off, or I'm below water, I can turn back on. And then it has a temperature dial on the outside of the aquarium. So all that stuff's good. Both of these can be used in different situations, but I wouldn't just throw these into a shrimp tank and let them go. So on our systems, we use them for guppies because, again, our basement is 50 to 70 degrees. Guppies like being at 78 degrees. I know this is a shrimp video, but this is the only time that we really use heaters unless we're treating for like quick cure, or we use quick cure. It's actually ick that we're treating for. So we have a heater down in this tank, and this works just fine because these fish can feel a little bit of fluctuation. And so we're not doing an extra safety measure. These actually start blinking a different color when they're going bad or faulty. So it lets us know that we need to pull them out. The Eheim doesn't have that feature, but we can constantly measure the temperature of this tank to know whether it's at. But for shrimp, you're gonna need something specific, and that is an external temperature probe. And you're actually gonna put the temperature probe into the tank. The heater is actually gonna plug into that probe, and you won't use the temperature dial on the heater at all. So when I was talking about this, I would set this Eheim all the way to the max setting, right? You just want it on. Now, what you're gonna do is you're gonna plug this into the temperature probe. The temperature probe is gonna go into the aquarium, and that's gonna plug into your wall. And your temperature probe is gonna tell you, hey, it is cold in this tank, I need to turn the heater on. As soon as that temperature probe senses that the heater went above a certain amount, boom, it turns the heater off. So you're not relying on this heater to determine whether it turns itself on or off. You're using a temperature probe. Now that temperature probe, there's much higher quality versions of that out there, and those are pretty reliable. They will turn, if they're faulty, they turn off. And so you're gonna need one of those temperature probes, and we can put a link down below because I don't know the scientific term for it or the official, it's actually called this. I'm just calling it a temperature probe because I don't have that information in front of me and I don't use them regularly. So that is how you can ensure that the temperature is gonna be good, and it kind of, eliminates this. Now, the next thing that you need to know, whenever you're doing a water change, the most important thing that you can do is, 1, make sure your heater stays below the water surface, or unplug the heater. But by unplugging the heater, then you introduce the risk of, hey, I forgot to plug it back in. And so, again, heaters, I 100% Don't think you should ever need a heater when using freshwater shrimp or keeping freshwater shrimp because you're not using them. Whenever keeping freshwater shrimp, I don't think you ever need a heater. But if you fall into this 0.001% chance of something that I haven't considered, or you keep your tank in extreme environments, maybe it makes sense. I just want to highly encourage you that the risk is not worth the reward, and in no way do I think a heater should ever be used. So that's just my 2 cents, but let's carry on with the video. If you guys are new here, or if you're not subscribed to the channel, I highly encourage you to hit that subscribe button. We do Shrimp Saturday videos every Saturday, and our goal is to educate you to be a successful shrimp keeper. So if you are looking to be a successful shrimp keeper, we want you to be a part of our journey here at Flipaquatics, and hopefully you find a lot of use in these videos. So for today, as a little recap, one, ideal temperature, 68 to 72 for shrimp. Freshwater shrimp, more importantly, Neocaridina, Caridina, those are the ones that I'm mostly referencing to, although it applies to a lot of freshwater shrimp. Now, there might be some exceptions out there. Reason one of why you should not use a heater is due to fluctuations. We call it the roller coaster effect, the ups and downs of temperature, which causes stress on your shrimp, which causes molting issues, just not good. Number two is the fact that you never want a cooked shrimp dinner unless you're going to a restaurant. So you do not want to cook your shrimp. You don't want your heater to either stay on or stay off and fail and be faulty. It's not good. It's just, I'm telling you, the minute it happens to you, you are going to regret it completely, because that's how I felt. Now, reason three is heaters are not cheap, especially if you're going to buy a quality heater, which if you're going to get a heater, you got to get a quality one, and throw in all the other equipment that you may need to make sure you do it properly. The cost is pretty high in an already expensive hobby, so I don't recommend it for that. And I don't know about you, but my electric bill is already as high as I want it to be. I don't need that sucker going up any higher, so that is just something to consider. Now, if you do need to do it, if you need to keep a heater, which, listen, I'm telling you, I don't think there's really any reason why you should ever need to do it, but let's say you find a reason. You need to have a quality brand. I like Eheim. I like some of Haiger's products. I know some of them, they get a bad rep sometimes, but like I really like the heater that we use, so you guys can refer back to that. You need to have an external temperature probe, something that your heater plugs into, and then it has a probe coming off it that goes into your aquarium. It keeps and monitors your temperature. And then you can even buy other temperature probes that are in your aquarium that alert you to huge fluctuations so that you can react quickly. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do. And again, there's just such a risk of things going wrong with heaters. So I highly encourage you not to use a heater, and that is the point of this video, because I do think heaters kill a lot of shrimp, and I don't want to see you go through that. So on that note, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this video. I truly hope that you learned something. You guys make it a great rest of your week. As always, God bless. We'll catch you on the flip side. I'm like wrestling these things. No, I hate that intro. No, I hate that too. I'm just thinking, no, I don't like that either, but hold on. It's hard, it's. Stop. It took a lot for me to even get to this point in the video. Oh God, delete. Go into their they go into a hibernation state. Thank you, Em.